Okay, on this one we're going to look at the Headless Pyramid. Um, it's found here in Sakkarra, which is right at the very start of the delta and the fertile region, and this is of course a better strategic area for them, being kind of in the center and towards the center of the grain and production than where they had it way up here a long time before. And of course you go straight down the Nile over the cataracts and things they speak of, and then down into the bottom fertile valley and the entire delta. And this is where they had their major conflicts with back here, because they held off Nubia pretty well through the dynasties until the late 25th. So the Headless Pyramid here, Menkaure of the 5th dynasty, they attribute this pyramid that we're going to look at to him. And so here you have his name and inscription out, and this is the holy places of Menkaure. And holy places, if you look, is like a pyramid or a building, and all the statues they build, and the fact you put a flag down almost in that area, it's a symbolic thing. And then you have his name here, which is Menkaure, and then of course is Horus, and so that's where you'd get his name from. Now they had found this in antiquity, of course, but then it was categorized in 1843 by Carl Richard Lipsis. He's famous of going in Egypt and cataloging all these numbers, and this came out as number 29, and it's still called number 29 to a lot of people, or the Headless Pyramid. They haven't want to attribute it to Menkaure because there are some discrepancies on who it actually may go to, and there wasn't enough found or a clear inscription that said it was exactly for him, and of course no mummies, which had probably been looted long ago. But in 94, Jerome Melech proposed that the Headless Pyramid should be long sought after pyramid of Merikare, a pharaoh of the 10th dynasty, since it was known that this pyramid had to be somewhere in northern Sakkarra near the pyramid of Tete, which is where we're at. And it had said in inscriptions and stuff that it should be there. So the Headless Pyramid was a perfect candidate for this, also because there were no other pyramids of the 5th dynasty in its immediate vicinity. However, most of the scholars believe that the owner of the pyramid was Menkaure instead, because the priests appointed for the funerary cult of this king were buried to a great extent right here in North Sakkarra in the old kingdom tombs, which would have been right here if you look at it. And indeed, this is Teddy's tomb right here, and right next to it. Let me blow up this picture so you can see it. We are going to look at some handheld footage here in just a second. So here's the famous temple of Dozier. And if you look, a lot of these are lined up on this slightly off canter. Dozier's done differently. Even this one is close to this exact number, whatever. King Unas is here. All the New Kingdom tombs came out in this area. So, but here's Tete, and it is close to it right here. So there's some discrepancy, but this is where he had marked it at, and this is where they do find it at. And so let's go back. And a systematic excavation in the substructure in 2008 under Zahi Was corroborated that the assignment to the 5th dynasty of the basis of the structure of the materials that were typical of that area and the way it was built. Although no inscriptions of the name pharaoh were found, Hawass attributed it to Menkaure because he is the only pharaoh of the 5th dynasty whose pyramid had not been identified. And indeed it could be down in this area, but it could have been from another. So this is either from like a 5th or a 10th dynasty, so it's still old. The things I want to show you are from something that's incredibly old, but there are some Ooparts and things that are really out of place here, and I want to take a look at them here now on the Headless Pyramid. Now this is a footage that's on Vlad 9VT's channel. He's got a lot of stuff about ancient megalithic stonework and things like this, but this shows you the coordinates and where he's at, and that there's a limestone building, megalithic base. This thing is 171 foot in circumference, and you can see the base, and I'm sorry about the shakiness, but it does get smoother once you get in here real well. But you can see that as you get into it, it's something that you would have never known. They had this totally covered with sand, as it had said back there. But look at this neat gray thing that's right in the middle of everything at the bottom. right? We're about to go down inside here, and look at a few of these. Now, the main base of everything are giant megalithic limestone pieces that are all sectioned together to where they fit. And there's a bunch of common pieces that would be somewhere around 200 pounds a piece, but nothing of exacting shape here that all builds up a lot of these interior walls and places and some of the substructure around the corner and edges of the pyramid. Then there's these huge blocks like this, and I'm sorry there's so much trash in here. You can tell that the locals have used it for a trash dump and things. They really almost cover up a lot of their own history and don't want people to find out things about it, but that's about a whole nother video. So look at these giant megalithic blocks here that are over a ton a piece, like this one right here. Now these are all pink granite, and I'll show you something about the pink granite coming up. But pink granite, of course, it's made out of 3 flecks or 3 different types of stone blended together, and so you get these effects like this where it's been pitted over time just due to weathering and things and stuff that had happened to it after it had been exposed. I'm sure it was in a lot finer shape at one time, but it's been exposed now for a couple of thousand years, and therefore been pretty much just trashed, no pun intended. But all this is done in that pink rose granite that seems to be from like the Aswan area, if I'm not mistaken, and so from quite a distance away. And one thing of note, if you'll look, this giant megalithic block here is just cracked right down the whole thing. So I don't know what type of perhaps earthquake or something had gone through here. These things just don't sit and crack like this. It takes an incredible temper change. You know, there can be a fault line in it, but you know, they always investigated their stone for fault lines in the first place. They didn't want to build anything that was going to crack. It was pretty much tossed. You can actually see that in some of the ones that they didn't use. So there's been a great catastrophe in this area somewhat that caused a lot of its demise, and of course locals and everybody stole a lot of the stonework off of it, and that made it the Headless Pyramid. But let's look at some of this stonework that's out of place here. If you look how smooth this is and the contours of it, the twists and angles and how everything is cut in line, and it's just still smooth to the touch. And this is black basalt. This is that darker piece that we were looking at, and it's totally level and flat across that whole plane there. It just doesn't. Now I want you to see this. Look down this edge here, and as we look down the edge, you can see it's almost still got a shine to it in places, but there's no quiggly moves down through that really at all. It doesn't have a lot of ripple to it at all. Maybe at best to your eyes, right in here, there may be a slightly blemished spot. That could be a lot of things, but it's incredible. And look at the corner right here and how tight it is. You can imagine the thousands of years of erosion, what it did to limestone over that time. So what it did to this harder stone over that time. But look down that edge there. It's incredible. And how you can run your fingers down certain places, and it's just so smooth and so cut and squared. And here's a neat thing here I want you to notice. This right here is a core cut that must have been done from a spinning piece, and they say now it must have been a tube of copper that they made. And then they would use like quartz ground up fine as its grinding agent and put it on there and spin the thing like the Indian way of making fire. And you would spin that thing like crazy, and whenever you did so, it would drill down through it. Now the oddity here is that it's got this little flange on here, which would have said the core probably came from the other side. It appears to be totally full of sand, and I wonder if you went from the other side and actually looked at it, which they don't in this video. I wonder if you looked from the other side, if it actually would have a mark on it, or the core coming all the way through the other side. You can see on this one even a worse flange that's still there, a piece that if the core was here, you probably couldn't get that thing out. This also would be some type of indication that the core didn't come even out this way, or nor the drill go in this way. And a lot of times whenever you go in, there's a lot of chipping around it, and this looks extremely smooth. So I don't know if you ever bore cut through anything like this, but amazing craftsmanship right here. And again, it's full of sand. but it's smooth all around it, and it has that one little flange built off into it. It's odd. Too bad in the video he didn't go down below and look up under it. Now look at these cuts here that level off and undercut. It undercuts down the whole line there. You know, and what you really don't see in this picture, maybe you can, is that when it undercuts, there's a double lip. Right here, there's a double lip that runs down this. And it almost harkens to the idea that they cut it from here and cut it from there. And this is the remainder in the between, and they didn't smooth it out. So this is like a coffin lid type situation. And you can see here on this piece where they have gone through and cut out through here. And they've gone this way and cut out through all here and left this raised part that's set up. And from exposure, there's some sand sitting around onto it, but from exposure up here, this is pitted a little bit, but you saw how smooth the side was on it. So that gives you an idea of length of time and exposure and so on. And all these giant pieces here that are all broke up that have quite a weird look to them. One thing you can notice here is that this cut comes along here and it kind of stops and it rounds up right here where you see that, and it ends. You'll get a little bit closer here. But look how flat and level they've cut that piece off right there, just sheared it. And look at this, how they've just sheared it off here and sheared this face here. Just incredible, right? And somehow they've gouged into this area here and cut that out. Let's see if we get a closer look at this here. You can see how it's like the ending of whenever you're cutting through a board with, like, say, a saw, and you stop, and how it's cut up at an angle because it ends. You kind of pull the machinery back somewhat or something, you know. Look at that. You can see how it comes up to the edge and a lip and just stops. So right there, you can see how they cut it along there, and then when it comes up to here, it just stops basically. Right? It's kind of unique. But again, somewhat smooth to the touch still up under the undercut here. And these corners and how they did this multi-cut is just, you know, quite incredible. It's, here's another cut. Now you can tell that it was cut once. And then you see the secondary cut that almost looks like a radial smooth cut here that he's running his fingers along. Well, this is a friend of his that's, I believe he's Ukrainian or something, and he has an own interest also in all this megalithic things and these strange sites. So these people are all into it too, definitely by far. But look at this cut down the edge of this stone, and you can tell it was a multi-pass that they did over it, and how this blade that came through here is on this angle and cut down, and these lines and vents that are run right through here. That's, you know, it's just quite odd looking on something that's so smooth to have that vent down there. It looks like multi-passes with a large blade system that had cut through here. You know, this doesn't look like somebody chipping away with little balls like they tried to act like they had. So again, so here's that temple of Pyramid of Tete, and it's still covered and non-excavated. So much of this is non-excavated, people. So much of it. And look at this ramp. And just looking from up here, and I don't know if you can really pick it up in the pictures here, but look at the little wiggles that are all up in this, right? And structure and lines where this is all ancient structures, all of it. All out here, all out here. And what is this thing? You know, it's all out here. And this road comes through here on purpose to miss these things. But look at all this that's out here too. Stuff that's never been excavated. Sakkarra is huge and never been excavated. Now, how much of this housing and thing that's over here are actually just on top of stuff, or use the stones from over here to make them? Here's the Headless Pyramid we're at here, though, right? So now he takes a trip down this road and goes into this little temple that's right here, and quite a different look here. Let's take a look at this. You can see that multi-angular cuts that are on this, and this is giant limestone, big megalithic base limestone too. So A little different than the understructure of the other one, made out of all those bricklets and stuff, although there is some in all things to fill it in somewhat. But look how gigantic these stones are and fit together and puzzled together like this to make up this ridge. And then there's the other stones and stuff, and it seems to be of a similar time period. But then again, if you're going to build with that type of stone and it goes on for thousands of years, it's not going to look much different than that right there. If you say do it rough, fill it in with mud and mortar like you see over there. So here's some more of these giant pink granite pieces that are well over a ton a piece, two stacked on each other here kind of uniquely, that are there for some reason, and nobody's ever got a chance to move them. Again, a lot of trash and refuge here from the people that live right across, which something needs to be done about that. A nice fence would probably help, but so that whole flattened area there that the man's standing on right now is all one gigantic megalithic piece of pink granite. Didn't have a seam in it, and it's got to be at least by 15 by 15, maybe a little longer on that one end he came in on. And look at these pink granite pillars that are here. And of course they're a little pitted, but now you can really see the pink granite maybe, and the colors that are mixed into it, right? And they can look at the composition and tell you where it's from. And so all of this is made out of a pink granite that's here. And look at this altar area here that's got this giant, again, solid pink granite built in megalithic, huge pieces here. The top has been cracked on it though, but I hope you can see right there how that's, shiny on the sides. And you can see the color in some of this still here. If you were to water it down somewhat, and it would really shine quite a bit still, but it's not. I don't know if it was exactly to a fine mirror polish, but it was to a fine polish here. So they have propped this up, and this is actually a tomb. The giant one rock on top, as big as it is just the capstone here, right? And then the tomb inside is just giant. It's almost, well, it's megalithic for sure, but I mean, look at the size of the workmanship here that they used. And of course, this is all going to crap. I don't know if people have tried to get it out of here a lot of times and broke it, or rocks falling on it have broke it all off. But here's a look inside. There's an oddity here if you can catch it. Let me see if I can turn the contrast up just a hair. There you go. You can kind of see in here that there's this line. There's in the corner, there's this line, there's this line, there's this line, and it looks like things were put in here, maybe set across. I don't know if this was originally intended to hold something, but there's another effect in here too on the interior. You see this big line through here? It almost looks like it's made out of two bricks, like this brick is sitting on top of this brick, but it's a solid unified piece. And so what is this made out of? Why does it, come in like that? It's just an oddity a little bit, but as if you weren't staring at an oddity anyhow, looking at something that's about, I don't know, 6 to 8 tons with a 2-ton lid sitting on top of it, just for what? And that corner here has been polished in, and so now you can kind of see how this granite, and you can see how it's blurbed and patterned, kind of, I don't know, jaguar patterned, if you will, of the pink blobs and blurches and black fleckling. And by looking at pieces, they can kind of identify exactly where it comes from. And look how this is still clean and good looking and polished compared to a lot of the other pieces that are all pitted in. It's been protected here in that recess that it's got, but the edge over here is just torn up, right? So neat. And you can go into here and stuff, and there's just trash, and you think you're going to come into a bum's living here or something someplace, but no. I'm not sure this has been totally excavated down to the bottom of everything to where they think they've gotten it. They think they've, found all the mummies and did everything. Here's the drop shaft that runs into it. But so there's a few more oddities that he finds here too that are pretty unique. And here's a special one. Look at all these core drills that are pulled out of here that all have a rounded bottom on them. You can see that hole on that one. He's feeling how smooth they are in each one. And it looks like almost like a practice run or something. I don't know what it is. But you go on the other side, and there's a few holes here, and one of them goes all the way through to that other hole, like making a little hourglass effect. Was it perhaps used for something like that? Did they do anything like that with it? I don't know. It's just an oddity, and that's a solid stone. Again, here's some of that nice pink granite. So just an odyssey and an oddity in the Headless Pyramid itself. And it does look a lot like 5th Dynasty stuff, and it doesn't seem to have anything that would reflect a later 10th Dynasty, but you never know what they pulled out of this. And of course, through these dynasties, it didn't change too much. I do see the effects that Hawass talks about, but it could also be the one that the other people had designated as being around the 10th also. Either one of these probably shouldn't have this core drilling and this technology going on at this point. And you can see this just out of nowhere massive megalithic stonework, which again was stationed down in the south and really built up north from that. Like, share, and subscribe, guys, and enjoy. Appreciate it.